Hello and welcome to this lesson brought to you by BitMerge. In this lesson, we'll get into the very basics of programming in Python with variables and data types. If you haven't installed Python yet, take a look at the previous lesson before diving into this one. To begin with, programmers work with data in the form of numbers and text. Variables allow us to hold on to those numbers and text for use in various parts of a program. In this way, a variable is a label we give to our data that we can use later on. Every programming language has different types of variables it recognizes. These are called data types and go beyond just numbers and text. In Python, numbers are broken out into integers, that is, whole numbers, and floating point numbers, that is, numbers with fractional parts. These two data types, referred to as int and float respectively, are two basic or primitive data types that Python makes use of. Many languages recognize single characters as unique data types, which include numbers, letters, and certain symbols. When two or more characters are strung together into a sequence of characters, we call this a string. In Python, there is no character data type, but there is a string data type, abbreviated str. With just these primitive types, int, float, and string, we can already start to create simple programs. To use a variable, we first need to let Python know that it exists. We need to declare its existence. This is called declaration, and in Python, it's simple. To declare a variable in Python, we simply spell out the name of the variable we would like to declare. There are restrictions on names. A variable cannot start with a number and cannot be in the list of reserved words. There's a link in the description. But pretty much anything else is allowed. When naming variables, it's a good idea to give them a name that's closely tied to what the variable represents, but short enough to be easy to type as many times as needed. Let's play with some variables in Python. If you're working in a command line environment or idle shell, you can simply type data into the shell and the interpreter will respond. Type the number 5 and hit enter. The interpreter recognizes this 5 as an integer, so spits back a 5. Type the letter Y. You should get an error when you hit enter. We would hope for Python to recognize this as a string, but it doesn't. Instead, it thinks you're giving it a variable name, which has not yet been seen. To feed it the string Y, enclose the letter in a set of single or double quotes. This is how Python distinguishes strings from variable names. This traceback error that we got a moment ago, it's very important and gives us useful information. We'll look at this more in depth when we talk about error handling. Now that we know we can get immediate feedback from the Python interpreter by entering numbers and strings, we can start to have Python evaluate expressions. Operators for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are commonly used in programming, and not just on numbers. Let's have Python tell us what 14 times 86 is. Simply type 14, followed by the multiplication operator, followed by 86, and then hit enter. Immediately, Python is able to tell us that the answer is 1204. Let's see what 7 divided by 2 is now. You'll notice that Python gives us 3 as the answer instead of 3.5. This is because both 7 and 2 are integers, so Python gives us the result as an integer. To get a more precise answer, we can make either 7 or 2, or both, floating point numbers by adding 0.0 to the end. Python then interprets the result as a floating point number, giving us the 3.5 we hoped for. Sometimes operators have multiple functions. The plus symbol is used as the addition operator when given numbers, but behaves differently when given strings. A string plus a string in Python joins the two strings together. This is called concatenation, and aptly, the operator is the concatenation operator. Concatenating the and dog gives the dog. Operators on numbers and strings can be used more than once in a single expression. To add a space to our concatenated string, we could type the plus space plus dog. Now to get into the heart of it. It's interesting to do some calculations with Python, but it's more interesting to be able to use the results later on. This is where variables come in. Let's create a variable numDays to represent the number of days in a week. We'll declare it by typing the name we would like to give it, then initialize it with a value. 7 seems reasonable. Here, we've actually done quite a bit. We've declared a variable with a particular name, assigned it an initial value, and in the process, let Python know that anytime it sees numDays, it should replace it with 7. The equal sign here is the assignment operator because it does just that, assigns values to variables. Go ahead and type numDays, then hit enter. Python will spit out 7, the result held in the variable numDays. Variables are useful because they hold on to information, but also because they can be changed. Typing something like numDays plus 1 will give you 8, the result we would expect, but does not change the value of numDays. Only when the assignment operator is used can a variable be changed. If instead we type numDays equals 2, then the value of numDays is truly changed. Python has some special operators that let us do operations more concisely. To double the value of numDays from 2 to 4, we could type numDays equals numDays times 2. Python will evaluate everything on the right side of the equal sign first, then assign the result to numDays. A shorter way of doing the same thing would be to use Python's built-in times equals operator. numDays times equals 2 will double numDays from 4 to 8. Similarly, the plus equals, minus equals, and divided by equals operators make basic arithmetic operations more concise. This table summarizes all of the operators we've discussed so far. We've covered a lot in this video. Try these 3 tasks to practice your new skills and check your answers by clicking the video link in the description. In the next lesson, we'll look at more operators and variable types and start making larger programs. Thanks for plugging in. Your thoughts mean a lot to us. Let us know what you liked, what we missed, and what you'd like to see next, and we'll see you back here soon.